Let's hear it for Brian Peck. Renee Quigley. Alan Troutman. Beverly Randolph. Tom Matthews. Jewel Shepard. Lou Gulliger. John Philbin. William Stout. And Don Kalf will be joining us very soon. I said Linnea. She was one of the first ones I said. One of my favorites. Hey! And Linnea Quigley again. And clues come ready with the cocktail.
Hi, everybody.
Now, it's been 25 years since the movie came out. We've seen so many zombie films. What is it about Return of the Living Dead that stands out above all the other zombie films?
The screenplay and the direction and the fact that it's really scary but also really funny. And the funniness doesn't come out of comedy right now. It comes out of the intense horror situations that the characters are. Sort of like having to stone me Frankenstein.
Yeah, it was kind of a seismic shift in zombie movies. Up until that time, zombies were just these slow-moving flesh eater things, and nobody had ever really thought about it much. And Dan really thought about it and came up with a really fun idea for this, and kind of turned the whole idea on its head. And that's what made such a big impression. That's why it made the impression it did, and it lasts till this day. I think it really holds up.
And I think the costumes and the music.
Yes.
It's like, I think it's so unique for that time, the costumes and the music was fabulous.
Yeah, first punk rock soundtrack.
The answer was the costumes and the music. I thought that was just a huge part of it.
Well, I think along those same lines, because a horror film starring a group of teenagers wasn't very unique. That's been happening before and even to this day. But the fact that we were, punks and sort of outside the mainstream teenagers was a unique spin on it. And that was a good excuse for the punk soundtrack, which was amazing, and another unique spin on it. Right, John Feldman?
I appreciate that. Anyone here have a question you guys all came out with? You in the black shirt.
I would have gone guy with the giant beard. Black shirt, okay.
It's my go-to joke.
Hey, this one's for Brian.
Hey, that's me.
All the guys in the house want to know, was Scuzz packing 9.5 inches worth of heat as well?
Oh, well, hell yeah. Yeah, I just carried that over from Last American Virgin to this film. We didn't really make use of it like we should have. There's some deleted scenes that only I own copies of. But, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, originally you thought Linnea was alone on that plinth dancing?
Wait, I have to explain for Jewel, because Jewel is looking at me confused and slightly excited at the same time. In the movie The Last American Virgin, which I made before Return of the Living Dead, I had a 9.5-inch penis in which I win the penis measuring contest. Yeah, it was a Merchant Ivory film.
I actually have a question from Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 for Linnea Quigley.
We love Mark Patton.
Yeah. He actually wanted me to ask you, did any guys hit on you on set? That's from Mark Patton.
I don't think anybody hit on me on set because they thought I would eat their brains. So they kind of stayed away from me. I think they were a little afraid. Oh, the extras did hit on me, that's right. But physically, they hit on me. They submerged themselves on me, and I was terrified.
Anybody else on set was hit on?
James Karen hit on me personally.
Really?
I remember that. You were like...
Very awkward.
It was like, you said, I want to be on top, and he said, no, I do.
I was like, back off, Mr. Pathmark.
Can you show us on this doll where he touched you? Question from the audience?
The produce section.
Anybody here? Come on, he has a question.
When's the next one coming out?
When we're actually all dead.
Actually, from previous interviews with a lot of you, you talked about wanting to do a sequel. Yeah.
But Beverly made a really good documentary. It's called More Brains. Best documentary ever, and I can't tell you enough how accurate it is.
Yeah.
Everything in there is gospel truth. You guys are laughing.
No, it's true. And if you haven't seen the documentary, it's actually, I mean, if you're not interested in this movie, it'd be a really boring documentary. But if you care about this movie, it's a really great documentary, and it's very lengthy and it's very in depth, and everyone participated in it, including people that are not here with us today. And Mikey Perez produced this thing.
Oh, there he is, right over there.
Anyway, it's a great documentary, and we were all like shockingly honest.
Ryan's just saying that because he's the narrator of it too.
Oh, you got to narrate it.
But it is a good documentary.
Brian said we're shockingly honest, and that's the thing that makes it stand out and be different than other Hollywood documentaries is we broke that unwritten rule and told the truth.
We figured after 20 some odd years, there's no reason to lie, right?
Mr. Stout, which were the most successful zombies from your artwork to screen?
Well, Tarman without a doubt, but I have to give at least half the credit, if not even more, to Mr. Alan Troutman because he made that suit come alive in a way that no stuntman could do. I insisted it had to be an actor, and fortunately we got a great one.
And wouldn't we love to see that move?
Oh, yes. Victoria and Shamrock, please. Speech. Come on.
Yeah, okay. It's nowhere near as scary. Here, it just looks kind of weird. Sorry about this. I always think of it as his pelvis is just about to squirt out blood. That's really.
Now it just sort of looks like a drunk insurance settlement.
At a convention.
It's like the professor stayed out a little too late with us.
Yeah. The other one that really stands out is the half quarters, which Brian Peck had a big hand in.
That's big.
And we all love the split dog.
Oh, yeah.
And the butterflies. I love the butterflies.
Yeah. And the yellow man. And when Dan O'Bannon wrote the screenplay, he got together with me and he said, look, I don't want this to be like other zombie movies. I want principal corpses. He says, in regular films, we have principal actors, and those are the lead actors in the film. He said, in this movie, we have principal corpses. So I want you to design me some very distinctive corpses that have not been seen in any other film. So that was a real fun thing to do.
Yeah. Now, actually, Tom and Beverly told me before that they went out on a date to get into the role.
Tom, tell it. Do you remember? You don't even remember. We do remember, but...
I really, yes. I've heard we went on. I don't really.
They gave him money for us to go
I think that's a
out.
compliment.
We can't remember where we went. We can't remember what we did. And...
We were young.
Like the worst date ever.
Or the best.
Yeah.
Okay, was there tongue involved?
No, I think we were both just very
I
shy.
think I had the lamb actually.
What?
Me and Jewel had a great date after the movie. Like during the movie, she was giving me shit the whole time, and then like on the closing day, I was washing blood or something off. She's like, "Oh, dude, you're hot," and then so afterwards, we went on a
Tell.
everything, man. It was awesome, man. Jewel was just this kid. She was running like fluorescent green, and I had a black light, and it was just fantastic.
It was great. I mean, fluorescent green and blood. It was like, oh, you're so
We didn't film it or anything like that, but it should have been in the, we should have put it in the movie. It was awesome.
Audience, right here.
If there was a remake, what actors would you want to play your part?
I like that little Amanda girl, the little one with the long blonde hair.
The favorite?
Yeah. I'm done.
Oh man,
I
don't
think
know.
Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad should play Scott. Megan Fox.
Yes.
That ain't bad.
Yeah, that was a good.
I would get really turned on if Megan Fox was doing it.
Yeah.
John Philbin, who should play Chuck?
Oh, nobody can replace any of us.
Daniel Day-Lewis and Matthew
What about Mr. Gulliger here? Does he have
Yeah, I
any-
want to hear from Clu Gulliger, who has, this is the first time Clu has ever left town to come join us. So I want to, so Clu Gulliger needs to address the crowd.
Is anyone here from Georgia? Or? Okay, you are. Okay. My people came from Georgia. I'm an Indian, and we moved to Oklahoma, and I became, I'm a cowboy from Oklahoma, literally, and then became an actor in the Marine Corps. And people here have asked me about my names. So many questions. Where'd you get Clue? Clue. Well, that's an Indian name, and I was named I'm an old guy, and when I was a baby, I was named like most Indian babies, literally are named. When the first thing the mother sees after the child is born, this is a true story, they call that baby. So my mother looked out the window when I was born. She saw a red bird flying in the sky, and the Cherokee name for red bird is Clue, 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 Clue. So she called me Clue, you know. I'm glad she didn't look out the window and see an outhouse. It's a long time.
My
Big
Indian
build up or nothing, John.
My Indian name is Broken Rubber.
The reason I think this picture was successful, and if it was, is because of the sex. I thought Brian Peck was the sexiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Linnea, do you want to trade seats?
He's put on a little muscle since that film.
Is that what you call it?
He's expanded a little bit, mostly muscle, and
We got the penis reduction.
yeah.
This is classy. This is the classiest panel. Just like inside the actor's studio, isn't it?
We sure do thank you guys for coming over and watching this panel, because we don't know what to say.
You could be up at Fandingles getting drunk right now, or Dangles, or whatever it's called.
Audience. Right here. So, what was right there, yeah.
Did everybody that was in the Tar Man scene, had they shown, did they expose y'all to Tar Man, or did they spring out on you?
That was a surprise. They'd hung a sheet, and that was a surprise. And then they started rolling, and down we go. So yeah. Well, it was a little awkward because I couldn't. I had to stay there, but I thought it was fascinating. It was a fascinating costume, and I thought, my gosh, that's fabulous. And so it wasn't something that was frightening, but I liked the aspect that it was a surprise. That was really fun. The broken step was a surprise. Yeah, not fun.
Looking back on it, though, do you think it helped your performance falling through the step? Or do you think you would have done just as well?
I think it hurt her.
I was black and blue, so no, it just ticked me off. I was just like, really?
Yeah, I'm going to the Barbarian. My director, John Milius, told Arnold, who's getting battered and cut in all kinds of different places. He said, the pain is temporary, the film is forever.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's true. Except my hip replacement's going to cost a lot.
I guess I was unusual that I never came to the set unless I had to get hosed down and doing work or something. But I remember seeing this guy I didn't know sitting off all by himself in this outfit. He couldn't drink or smoke or talk to anybody. He was sitting all by himself. And I felt really sorry for him. And then, then they put us into a scene and call action, and then you'd come out and do this thing. And I mean, we couldn't fake our amazement at, what a transformation. It was a human being, but it did not resemble a real person. And then he would go back to waiting, and it was, no one could talk to him because he was so unreal. It was surreal. It was an amazing job. But at that time, I'd never seen anybody do anything like that, so committed to that kind of performance. It was awesome. Good work.
Alan, tell them about, one of my favorite stories is about, because obviously you sweat a lot in that suit.
Oh, yeah, I was
about
going to
when
ask
someone
about
else had to put it on.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, first of all, this explains why I don't have too many backstage stories. We're off, because most of the time I'm just like on a slant board, just sort of like waiting to go on, and nobody really, it was like this perimeter around me. What the heck is that? I don't know. I'm not going to talk to it, though.
We've become very good friends with Alan since, but on set we were like, oh, don't talk to that guy.
Who knows what's in there? But what did you ask me about?
No, about when you had to take the suit off.
Oh, God, yeah. The scene where where Clute knocks my head off at the end. The way they did that was they actually hired another performer who, without a head, who was about that tall, to get in the suit after me. All right, and then there was a fake head, and he knocked it off. So I would walk out, and then he would swing, cut, great. You get out of the suit, you get into the suit. And if I remember correctly, that was like the last day of shooting, and I was like done with it. I got out of that suit, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're going to put somebody else in this thing. It's wet and smelly. I've been in that thing for, a couple of weeks. I just felt awful for that guy.
It was hot. We shot this movie during the summer, and we were on this warehouse. It was really hot, and there was sweltering.
And I just laughed all the way home.
So this guy literally got to get not only in Alan's sweaty, smelly suit, but literally covering his face, so his nose is like covered. I thought that was the most horrific thing about the film.
Oh, God.
You had to keep his face warmer, because if you turned from side to side, you'd be in Alan's armpits.
Anybody else? Right there.
Return of the Living Dead aired prior to the documentary that was made. Always read stories about what Dan Mann was like on the set. And they kind of made it seem a little creepy, but when the documentary was out, I think because he had recently passed, I think you guys made it a little nice. I just want to hear more about the real on-set Dan.
The honest truth is that we literally don't all have the same story, because we got along with Dan differently, to be honest with you. Well, I'm straight at you because you're female, and honestly, he was not nearly as nice to the females as he was to the guys. I mean, he was tougher on them.
Okay, Dan was a really difficult guy. And he and Clue did not like each other, right?
I love Dan.
They did not like each other.
Dan was a substitute director. Toby Hooper, from your part of the country, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was scheduled to direct. And you know this better than I do, most of you. He couldn't, for some reason. Dan wrote the script as a joke. He won the contest. So they said, you directed. He said, well, he directed. And he didn't know how to prepare for a day's shooting because he was a writer, one of the great writers, literally, in Hollywood. He wrote Alien. He was one of the best writers we've had in the 20th century, I felt, for screenplays. But he didn't know how to prepare for movies. I was an experienced actor who didn't know my ass, and I got on the set These guys had rehearsed for 2 weeks with Dan. I got on the set. I was a big shot in my own mind. And I didn't know where we were. These guys were so good, but they'd been preparing for 2 weeks. And I said, boy, I'm out of my league here. So I started acting, and we got into the film, and I was so frustrated because each day Dan would come to the set, this great writer, come to the set as director. And I was confused, and I got a little upset one day.
Yeah, he threw lots of stuff all over the place.
And I started to go after Dan.
With a baseball bat.
And James Karen, my assistant in the film,
Hold him away!
grabbed my arm and said, you don't want to do that. And I said, that's right. But Dan had a disease. He was dying, and I did not know this. He died
That's why
a few years later, but he had a permanent disabling disease, and I didn't know he was dying. And he came to a panel for me one time at the theater, and he was just about dead in Hollywood, and I didn't know this. And he gave some beautiful words, beautiful talks, and I went to his memorial service, and his wife said, well, you and he are okay now. I said, you bet. So that's how it turned out.
Dan really knew what he wanted. I mean, he had a very clear vision of what he wanted, and he just didn't have the most graceful way of going about telling you that. It was just sort of, no, I want you to do this, and he was very big on acting it out for you, where he would literally like walk the part and say your lines and show you this is how you should do it. And for some of us, I mean, I have to say for myself, I got along with him very, very well. And I was a huge fan of his and a huge fan of Alien. I think I mentioned the story in the documentary, but I mean, when I got cast in this movie, I had the one sheet for Alien framed in my bedroom because I was such a fan of that movie. So I was really excited to be working with Dan. So I kind of just showed up and said,
He just really didn't like.
I was like, I'm your puppet, I'll do whatever you want. And I got along with Dan really well. But I certainly saw why others might not get along so with that. But he's a brilliant writer. He's a brilliant guy. It was the first film he had directed, and I don't think he had learned the fine art of working with actors, where you're half director, half therapist. And he was just really abrupt and told you what he wanted, and sometimes that worked, and sometimes it didn't.
See, that's so strange to me because I had a totally different experience of that. With Jimmy and I, he would just let us go off, and it was always like an improvisation. He didn't say boo to us.
And you guys got to go to the Christmas party.
And we went to Christmas parties.
Beverly's got a very horrifying story.
Yeah, my experience with Dan was after I'd been cast and the papers had been signed, he asked me to come over to his house to read lines. And so...
That's to do lines, honey.
Yeah.
I went over to do some lines.
I was 19 at the time. I might have been 18, I don't know, 19. And I go to his house and there's guns on the table. There's a gun. I didn't know this, and everybody else understood that Don kept guns around the house. But they were literally sitting all over. And so I walk in, he's got porn on the TV.
Do lines, do some porn.
Yeah. And I'm just starting to go, oh my God, what in the world? And like 18 or 19. Yeah. And so he gets up, and so I'm getting nervous and not knowing what's expected of me. And the phone in the kitchen rings. So I'm like, thank God. So he goes in there, he answers the phone, he's in there for a few minutes, and I took off and I said, I'm sorry, I forgot I have an appointment, I gotta go.
And the door.
He wanted out of the house.
She hung next to the door.
And from that point on, he was not nice to me.
Dan was great. Dan and I used to go to comic book shops and get all the Zap comics and Matt Groening comics that we used to do before The Simpsons. And Dan collected Tales from the Crypt books. He was an amazing perfectionist, great drug addict. you know, love naked girls. So I used to take off my clothes for him all the time. Maybe that's how I got the part. And
So he liked you.
he liked me, yeah, but that's why he got so frustrated, because I could not say that line, "Go choke a chicken," to save my life. I did not understand the line. This is what Dan kept on saying. He's like, "How can you not understand this? What? Oh my God, you do not know this." And so John here had explained it to me ever so quietly and politely. And how did you say that to me?
I don't remember.
Oh, come on, John.
I can't remember. I don't.
John?
All this time has gone by. I don't know now what Go Choke a Chicken. I still don't know. I don't know. How do you not know what Go Choke a Chicken is? You really
So that's
don't?
like, I don't know. I thought it was like some chicken in a farm. And
It has nothing to do with the chicken.
Nothing to do with the chicken. No, it has more to do with a cock. Which is a rooster. I mean, come on, that makes sense.
Yes, a big
rooster.
So Dan was a unique individual, and I'm very proud to have known this man in all his craziness. And he apologized to you, Beverly.
He did. Yeah, he did. He said he said I was a complete ASS.
He apologized to everybody.
See, ASS. So Tina.
ASS.
See, she really is Tina. So
He tries to get me to say the F word all the time. Ryan's like, come on, just say it.
my own story, people ask, where does Dan get his ideas from? He gets them from his own personal life. When we began the film, Dan and I would drive out to the sets together each day. And he was a terrible driver. There was never a single time where he didn't miss the exit. Because he was so wrapped up in telling stories and stuff. But when Dan does anything, he researches it thoroughly. And so he found out that I was in the market to buy a house, and he had just purchased a house. And so he had done all this homework, and he had decided, after going through style after style after style, he said there's one house, style that you should get, and only one. And I said, what's that? He says, it's Spanish adobe. He says, it's a perfect house except for it does have one fatal flaw. I go, well, what's that? What's wrong with Spanish adobe? He says, the walls are not machine gun proof.
They're guns.
And I said, oh, really? And he bought a Spanish adobe in Santa Monica, had the walls removed, and had steel plates put in the walls so that his house is machine gun.
I remember seeing the house in that state. It was all the interior walls were gone. He was putting up my. I said, "You're crazy."
But you mentioned a big flaw in his trying to.
Oh, the windows. I said, "Dan, the windows." Bullets can go through windows too. Because oh yeah.
Yeah, he took me on a tour of his house, and he said, after the tour, he said, I just want you to know, wherever I am in this house, I'm within 3 feet of a loaded weapon. And I thought, well, that doesn't make me feel comfortable at all. Knowing that you have access to guns that are loaded.
I'm within hand reach of a loaded.
But out of that paranoia, he wrote Alien, he wrote Blue Thunder, he wrote Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, I think he was also concerned about the earthquakes living in Santa Monica too, because apparently his bed was like this. If the earthquake happened when he was sleeping, he was protected because his bed was like this fortress that he was. It's like a big canopy over it with a 4-poster bed, and he was ready. They weren't going to take him easy. Jesus wasn't going to take him.
Now I know how Tom got the part. Well, I'd like to point out, by the way, that Tarman is sitting right in the front row. Hi, Tarman. Good to see you again. Make someone else put that on after you sweat in it.
My question, I want to know, when did you guys realize that Brains had become such an iconic phrase?
Has it?
Yes.
Jon Stewart quotes our film every week, on a weekly basis. He'll say, more brains! On the Daily Show, yeah.
The first time for me was on South Park. It was when I saw South Park doing zombies yelling for brains. And literally doing lines of dialogue from the movie.
I just say that when
I see it all the time. I think there's even on Glee. They're doing that.
And apparently, I mean, it's just become a thing now. Not everything, like Walking Dead, they're not after brains per se, but so many movies now that's in More Bodies, the movie that's opening or just open, they're after brains and everything.
Is that the one that he turns, he comes back to being
You'll
human?
like it. It's a zombie romantic comedy.
I think I saw that. Finally I can watch a horror movie. Yeah. It looks good. Yeah, I like that one.
More Bodies. I don't know why I've decided to point to you and say that I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge, but go ahead.
Man, my favorite ad-lib was you and Jimmy Carrey in the scene with Clue, and you're struggling to get the yellow man down on the floor so you can saw his head off, and Clue just started improvising like crazy, and he was going, "Mount him! Mount him!"
So we mounted him.
He just then takes the yellow cadaver to a taxidermist. That's all they meant.
I remember that guy being naked with a little like net thing, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe that. It was like.
And you said, "Oh my God, I can almost see his P-E-N-I-F."
Wee wee.
I don't know. There was some ad-libbing here and there, but not a ton. I mean, for the most part, even the scenes where we were kind of all screaming and yelling and talking over each other was fairly scripted. But we had, as Clue mentioned before, which is so unheard of on any movie, much less a zombie movie, we did have 2 full weeks of rehearsal, with the exception of Clue, who had not been cast yet. They were still trying to cast his role. But we all rehearsed for 2 weeks, and so by the time we got around to shooting those scenes, you know, we knew the lines and we were really practiced on what we were doing. So that sort of rapid fire way of talking and sort of overlapping ended up sounding very natural, but it was scripted.
Right here.
Mr. Beverly, you notice you were late in the graveyard and you say, "Oh fudge." Was that an ad-lib or the written word, "oh fudge"?
That was the written word. Yeah.
Fudge was actually.
Oh fudge. Yeah. Thank
They
you.
changed it from brownies to fudge. The original was brownies. Oh, brownies.
The fact is, but Dan just happened to cast the perfect person for the role, because that's so Beverly, you just assumed that she didn't want to say, you know,
But
the other fudge word.
Was it Beverly, or did Beverly become the character? When was the seed planted?
So, in regards to the script question, I read the screenplay. It was very funny, but I was there for the first table read with the actors, and that's when I realized just how much actors can bring to a screenplay. They made that script twice as funny just by the delivery of
Thank you,
lines.
Bill.
They took lines that were
Thank you
just
very
great,
much.
and they were incredible. And I've worshipped at the feet of actors ever since.
Why then? Why are you sitting? No, I can't speak for everyone else. I've mentioned this in the documentary, but James Karen, who's brilliant and hilarious in the movie, at the time we were shooting it, he was playing to the back row, and I remember thinking, oh gosh, I don't know about this. This is like a little over the top of whatever. But then you see the fitting, no, Jimmy Karen, you know, like, oh my God, and he was just like screaming. And then Clue got there, and I just remember, I was always there. I was such a nerd. I came to set whether they wanted me to or not. So I was, even if I wasn't in the scene, I was always there with her.
Yeah, doing craft service.
I was doing craft service. I was like doing Tom's hair.
Wardrobe.
But no, I just remember when you and Jimmy and Clue were doing the thing with the yellow cadaver. I watched you guys shoot, and you Clue screaming and you're screaming, everyone's screaming. I was like, this is crazy. I don't know about this, but it's awesome.
Did you want to say anything about that?
Look, John Gallagher has a question.
Oh, Mr. Gallagher back here.
Well, okay, so you talked about casting the perfect person. Can Linnea talk a little bit about being cast and doing any of the dance scenes and any weirdness that might have gone on with, like, you know, having to run around in your non-costume for...
You got to tell the car story, too. The car, the producer's car.
Oh, yeah. It was like, I kept my contract until we were done because it was such a workout and exhausting movie to do. And when I read for it, I just done Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Stanley Stokes, the casting director, had me come in. And it was like, I had to do the scene where I said, do you ever fantasize about being killed? And then go into my dance. And I remember it was very embarrassing, but when we actually did it, it was pretty much, the dance was improvised. But it was like a real change from like the parts I had been doing where I was the victim. So I was like kind of a strong woman. And I love that. And I had the extras all going, oh my God, she's running around naked.
Didn't your thingy fall off?
No, my G-string, which they made, that was Dan was talking to me about. I had to get a mold made down there, which was, I had to shave because if not, it would like, the hairs would all like be tugged out. And Dan was explaining how to shave. And at that, it was like so embarrassing to me at that point in my life. I was like, oh my God.
There's real perks to filming.
Yes.
I have a story. I'm not sure it's fit for Georgians. Should I tell it? Okay. We have a term that we use for a small little piece to cover the genitalia area of a woman when she has to appear nude in a dramatic role. They made this piece of equipment, what's it called, John?
Merkin!
A merkin. This is good for you to know when you go to church. They made a merkin for this great actress with a nude scene. It looked so vulgar. They said, it looks less vulgar bare. No merkin. Now this is what I heard. You may correct me on this. So she finally had to go stark naked without the merkin covering the prize. And I just loved watching her work.
I am so glad you like watching my work. But there were scenes where, like, from the back and everything, I did have to take it off because it was like a G-string was glued to me. And when I had to go to the bathroom, I had to be like, can you unglue me? It was like so embarrassing to have to do that. But it was definitely very cold with the rain and everything. And actually, the day of the dance, there was no rain and it was comfortable, except for the road flares that Brian was terribly scarred from.
Well, not terribly scarred.
But scarred.
I do have the scar on my hand from when we danced around her with the road flares. The molten road flare lava dripped on my hand, and I didn't want to yell cut or anything, so I danced around with my hand burning, and then when we yelled, yeah, there were these buckets of water that we would throw the road flares in, which Dan yelled cut, and so when they yelled cut, I just shoved my hand in the bucket of water.
Oh.
But I have the scar. I'll show it to you if you come to the
Yes, come see his scar. But John didn't know that I was going to be that way, and I think he was a little bit shocked.
Excited.
Here's how I remember it being said is Lenny had started her dance, and Graham Henderson, the line producer, walked by and said, "Oh my God, baby, it's full frontal nudity. You can't show pubic hair in a film." And Dan said, "Well, I'll take care of that." So he came over to me and said, "Go have her shaved." so we shaved Lynette, and she started the scene again, and Graham's walking by. "This is worse! You can see my
Back of it.
So Graham said, he said, "Go have her cast and make a pussy foot. And make her like a Barbie doll." And so that's how she became seamless in the film.
Oh, that's it. Boy, my memory kind of blocked a lot of that out. Oh, I wrecked.
Mold was sold on eBay for a lot of money.
Oh my God. God.
I have it.
Report
I have it.
last One thing I did do was Graham Anderson, the line producer, I was freezing, so he offered for me to sit in his heated Jaguar, and I sat in it, and he's got paint in there from my white paint that I was painted, and on his leather seats that he's never been able to get out.
And since then, the wife of Graham Henderson said, "Did they have an affair?" No, it was just they did. She was so worried because of the stain in the seat that never came out. And he's how tall is he? 6'4". Yeah. So, and Linnea, how tall?
But small.
5'2". Yeah. No, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't.
What's their flow?
If a split dog comes to life,
What do they do?
I'd grab a rubber crutch and beat the shit out of it.
Are you aware that the TSA actually did a zombie apocalypse drill?
Yep. Yeah. What? What's that?
In case there's a zombie apocalypse, the TSA wanted to be prepared and how to handle it, and so they actually did a real drill. This was reported in the LA Times several months ago.
The question? Right here. Says, did any of you to this day have any of your props or wardrobe?
Brian has everything.
I don't have everything.
He has 80% of it.
And the set pieces.
Anything that came across Brian's visual or physical presence, he has.
Now, here's the funny thing. And believe me, back at the time, I wasn't thinking that anything would become collectible or worth money or anyone would really even care. I'm just like a goofy pack rat and nostalgic, and like, you know, I also have all of my drawings I did in elementary school, so it's not just like movie props, but you know, I like save everything, and so I saved a lot of stuff from the movie, but I'm sad to say that there's a chunk of it that I traded away to a guy many years ago, because it's this weird thing, when you work on a film yourself, at least for me, I'm kind of like, that was just that thing that I was in, so it can't be that cool if I was in it, you know? But meanwhile, I have a huge collection of stuff from the original Planet of the Apes movies. I have a crazy ape museum in my home.
Yeah, you got to have
but I traded, like, I had a split dog, and I had the yellow cadaver's head, and I had the Tarman face that melted under the opening credits, and I traded that for a desk from Dr. Zayas' office in the first film. But I still have, I grabbed some tombstones, which I still have, and I grabbed I still have my whole costume in my closet at home.
And the button that you borrowed, how many years ago?
The what? The button?
Button.
Oh, on the jacket? Oh, I borrowed most of those buttons from a friend of mine who was kind of, you know, more of a punk rock person, and never gave them back. So I just hung my costume in my closet. So I took some things. I have some things, but I gave some of it away. So now I want that stuff back. When
I kept all the art.
Yeah.
On every film I've made, I've kept all the art. It's part of my contract. And the only thing I saved from that film is one day the construction guys were constructing. They built part of the closet, like a work closet, and there were bookshelves in there. And they said, you know, what color you want these bookshelves? And I said, oh, you know, just paint them white. And then I realized about 10 minutes later that Dan had wanted those to be raw wood. So I ran back and they had already painted one of them white. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know if we're going to have to build new ones or whatever, but these are supposed to be natural wood. And the guy said, come back in 10 minutes. I came back in 10 minutes, and I got this close, and I still couldn't tell which was the real wood grain and which was the painted wood grain. And they did it in 10 minutes with combs. It was just unbelievable. And so that bookcase, that faux painted wood bookcase, I've still got that.
Beverly, what happened to your costume?
I had it forever, and then about 6 years ago I threw it away, thinking I didn't need it. I know. All of it. I know. Bad.
didn't think you were going to wear it again?
I'm never going to fit into that.
Right. I had my shirt because it was my shirt, and then I have my prosthetic eyes. I didn't steal anything, Brian. That's what you're referring to.
I didn't steal. I just borrowed the stuff.
Linnea, do you have anything from you?
I've got the breakaway top, the vest, and the shorts. So
Do you
because
still
they
use
make
that, do you?
multiples of them.
Breakaway top?
The what?
Do you still use that?
Oh yeah, all the time when I go out, I just wear that.
Bam!
You know.
Bam!
Yes.
Prosthetic head fight ball.
That's cool.
Clue, did you say?
Yes, I did. One night it was raining and we were outside and I needed to go to the little boy's room and I just couldn't leave the set. There was a little cup here and I got the cup and I filled it up. I still have that.
Special.
I need that. Email.
What's the
Selling
beer?
drop.
There you go.
Speaking of Tina's costume, since Miguel's not here, I just want to say titties.
When we started, I asked the audience for favorite lines. Do any of you have a favorite line from the movie?
Does it have to be our line or someone else's?
Anything from the film.
But send more cops. That's like my favorite. Send more paramedics.
And also suicides. This isn't a costume. This is a way of life.
And my favorite line that was cut out of the film, I ain't taking no fucking bus.
Where was that? Oh, when they're on
the
the ride.
introduction when we're walking up the sidewalk, that scene was like twice as long. But the scene cuts in the movie at that certain point. You know, let's go, Freddie always knows where there's a place to party.
Yeah.
But then it continued on, like how we gotta get there, and it's like, well, Suicide has a car, and someone says we can take the bus, and I said, I ain't taking no, sorry, I'm cursing, and there's children here. I ain't taking no fudging bus.
And I was in that scene. I was the alcoholic bum that they step over, and Brian Peck did a little improv and tossed me a dime, and I still have that dime.
You really do?
Well, I'm Neil Jones from Without Your Head. Let's hear it for the panel here from the Journalism Den.
Let's hear it for the fans of the Journalism Den.
Yeah, thank you guys, so we can still actually get together 28 years later and people still care. It's very nice, thank you.